Hello everyone, welcome to online education of Sir CRT College of Engineering. So in the last class we have seen the classification of hydel power plants. So now tell me how many types are there in the classification of hydel plants means basically we have four types are there. That is nothing but first one is based on the head, and the second one is based on the installed capacity, and the third one is the most important thing that is nothing but based upon the availability of the water. So in this one, we have four types of power plants are there. Those are nothing but the first one is a reservoir type, and the second one is a pumped storage plant, and the third one is a runoff river without pandes, and the last one is a runoff river with pandes. This classification is very important. That means based upon the availability of the water. So already we have seen each and everything in the previous classes. And the last classification is based upon the supplying of the load. So we have two types of loads are there, base load and peak load. So what type of power plant is used to meet the peak load, and similarly what type of power plant we use to meet the base load. So already we have seen in the previous classes. And at the end, we have seen the brief idea on a gate examination means the fundamental details on the gate examination means for how many marks who is going to conduct and when will it is going to conduct. And similarly, at the end of the session, I have just provided the strategy for your gate preparation. Now, coming to this class, you will see the most important topic, that is the classification of hydrothermal scheduling. So already I told you in the starting class of the second unit, literally we have only one topic is there in the second unit. That is nothing but hydrothermal scheduling. Remaining all are nothing but a basic fundamentals. So already we know remaining topics. The only topic which is present in your second unit is hydrothermal scheduling. So that's why we need to give a lot of importance for this topic, the hydrothermal scheduling. And in this class, we are going to see the basic classification of hydrothermal scheduling. So means based upon the some of the parameters, we can classify our hydrothermal schedulings into different types. So what are those types? We will see in this class. And one more thing is I want to share at the end of the session with the reference to the last class, some people messaged me that, sir, what textbooks we need to follow for a gate examination. So that I am going to provide at the end of the session. So that is means the source of the gate exam preparation, what textbooks we need to prepare, and along with the textbooks, is there any source for preparation for the gate examination? So I will provide this information at the end of the session. So first let us consider the classification of hydrothermal scheduling. So before considering the combination, that means hydrothermal scheduling, let me take individual scheduling. So individual means first let us consider a thermal scheduling. Scheduling in thermal. For example, let us consider here, assume two power plants. Here we are considering only a thermal power plant. So in this one, let us consider only two power plants. Now, again, let us assume your demand is equals to 100 megawatts. So here, totally how many power plants we are taking? Two power plants we are taking. But here demand is equals to 100 megawatts. Means we need to generate the total generation that must be equals to 100 megawatts. That means P1 plus P2 is equals to 100 megawatts. But here the point is, what is the value of P1? And similarly, what is the value of P2? That is nothing but a scheduling. Means how much power we are going to generate by using P1 plant. Similarly, how much power we are going to generate by using a second power plant. That is nothing but a scheduling. For example, when you consider this problem, the total demand is equals to 100 megawatts. Out of this 100 megawatts, a part of 100 megawatts is must be generated by the P1, and the remaining part must be generated by the P2. That is nothing but a scheduling. For example, let us consider if P1 is equals to 20, what would be the value of P2? 80. Because your P1 plus P2 is always equal to 100 megawatts only. Similarly, when you are considering one more, P1 is equals to 30, and similarly, P2 is equals to 70. So like this, you can allocate any value your P1 at the same time P2. I can allocate P1 is equals to 50, so that your P2 is equals to 50. And similarly, I can allocate P1 value is equals to 75, then automatically P2 value is equals to 25. So like this, we can allocate any value of P1 so that we can get any value of P2. This is nothing but a normal scheduling. Scheduling means here how much power is going to generated by the P1. Similarly, how much power is going to generated by the P2 in this example. But the constraint is here P1 plus P2 must be equals to 100. So in the first case, it is 20 and 80, and similarly 30 and 70. So whatever the powers you can allocate, that is nothing but a scheduling in a thermal power plant. This is nothing but a normal scheduling. But here, when you consider the practical case, a normal scheduling is not at all preferable in practical case. The reason here it is, when you are considering the thermal power plant, whatever the fuel cost here, the fuel cost is very, very more when compared to the other sources. So that's why what we will do is, in the second case, we will go for optimal scheduling. What is the meaning of optimal scheduling? It is nothing but economical generation. So when we are wanting to generate power in economical way, the term is called as optimal scheduling. Optimal means at cheaper rates, or we can say economical way. So optimal scheduling means generating the power in an economical way, or simply we can say economical generation. So how we have solved this optimal scheduling when we are considering thermal power plant is by considering some special function that is nothing but auxiliary function. So how we can write that auxiliary function? It is nothing but the objective function plus lambda into constraint. So what is the here objective function? It is nothing but cost function. So what is the objective function is to minimize the fuel cost. So in order to minimize the fuel cost, we are taking some auxiliary function that is nothing but a Lagrangian function. And what is the here lambda value? Lambda value is nothing but a Lagrangian multiplier, or we can say Lagrangian constant. And coming to the constraint, what is the constraint here? So here a power balance equation is nothing but our constraint. So when you are considering the case 1 problem means, so without considering the losses, our power balance equation is nothing but PD is equals to PC. Power demand is equals to power generation. Similarly, when you are considering the losses, our power balance equation is nothing but PD plus PL is equals to PC. So now, when you take this objective function and the constraint, we'll have some equation in terms of Lagrangian multiplier. Then after that, how to get the solution for optimality is by taking KT conditions. KT condition means Kuhn-Tucker conditions. These are very, very important conditions in our mathematics. Those conditions are nothing but dou L by dou P is equals to 0. Similarly, dou L by dou PT is equals to 0. So like this, when you substitute, then we will get the equation that is df1 by dp1 is equals to df2 by dp2 is equals to df3 by dp3 is up to so on is equals to lambda value. This is in the case of when we are neglecting the losses. And the second one is by considering the losses, we will get the equation is L1 into df1 by dp1 is equals to L2 into df2 by dp2 and so on is equals to lambda. This is nothing but a second equation. First equation is nothing but when we are neglecting the losses, and the second equation is nothing but when we are considering the losses. So finally, we got the condition for optimality. And what is the value of penalty factor? This is nothing but the formula for a penalty factor, and is given by 1 by 1 minus dou PL by dou P. So what is the meaning of dou PL by dou P? It is nothing but incremental power loss with respect to the power generation. Very, very important term. Dou PL by dou P represents incremental power loss with respect to the power generation. Means when we are increasing the power generation, then how much power loss is going to happen? That represents dou PL by dou P. So these are nothing but the conditions for optimality when we are taking a thermal situation. When we are taking a thermal situation. So based upon, by using these conditions, we can find out the P1 at the same time P2 in an economical manner, so that we can save our budget. So this is in case of thermal. Similarly, let us consider a idle law. Let us consider a scheduling in idle. This is almost similar to our thermal. For example, let's consider, assume two plants itself here also. Then assume the same layer, PD is equals to 100 megawatts. Then what would be the values of P1 and P2 in normal scheduling? So whatever the values you want to give for P1 and P2, you can give it, because this is a normal scheduling. Means your P1 maybe is equals to 20, then automatically your P2 value becomes 80. Similarly, the second value is, if you give a P1 value is equals to 30, and the second power plant is going to generate a 70 megawatts. And similarly, if you give a 50 for P1, then automatically P2 becomes 50. So like this, you can give the P1 at the same time P2 values, and this is nothing but a normal scheduling. But the question is, already I told you that normal scheduling is not at all preferable outside. The reason is we need to go for optimal scheduling. Optimal scheduling means we need to minimize the fuel cost. Now tell me here, optimal scheduling of idle plants. Is there any necessity for optimal scheduling of idle plants? Is it necessary or not in case of idle power plants? Just drop me or message in our chat box. Definitely we need to consider optimal scheduling in case of a thermal power plants. Why need to consider means, when you are taking a thermal power plants, the fuel cost is very more. So that's why in order to minimize the fuel cost, we went for optimal scheduling in case of a thermal power plants. But coming to the idle power plants, now tell me, is it necessary for following optimal scheduling when we are considering only idle power plants? Is it necessary or not? Yes, I got some messages. Yes, from roll number 18 series 214 is saying that no fuel cost. It means it is almost zero. And very good, 18 series 221 is saying that non-necessary. And 252 is saying that yes, sir, it depends on reservoir storage and water level. Very good. And one more person is saying that 253 is saying that no, sir, exactly. For example, when you look at the optimal scheduling, in what situation when we will go for optimal scheduling? For example, if something, one thing is too expensive, one parameter is too expensive or too cost, then only we will go for optimal condition. Optimal condition is nothing but to produce the power in an economical manner. When we are thinking about economical manner, when the fuel cost is more, then only we will think about optimal scheduling. But when you are considering a hydro power plants, what is the fuel here? Fuel is nothing but here water. But here, what is the cost of the fuel here? It is nothing but almost zero, or we can say negligible cost. So when there is a fuel cost is zero, then when there is a fuel cost is equal to zero, then there is no question of optimal scheduling. There is no question of optimal scheduling when we are considering only idle power plants. The reason here it is, in idle power plants, the fuel cost is zero, or we can say it is negligible. When the fuel cost is negligible or zero, then there is no question of thinking about optimal scheduling. So that's why optimal scheduling is only for thermal power plants. We should not follow optimal scheduling in idle power plants. But here, we need to respect one more thing, that is constant. What is the constant here? Water availability. When the water is there in the reservoir, then only you can go for idle generation. When there is no water availability, we can't go for idle generation. So when you are considering a water availability, some more parameter are comes into the picture. Those are nothing but constraints which are present in our idle power plants. So what is the main constraint here? Water availability. For example, when you are considering a rainy season, we have plenty of water is there. But coming to the winter season and summer season, what about our water availability? Water availability is not so much when we are considering a summer season and winter season when compared to the rainy season. So that's why when you are considering the idle power plants, the most important constraint is nothing but the water availability. So when we are considering the water availability into the picture, some more parameter are coming to the picture. Those are nothing but a water discharge at the same time of water. Those two parameters are very, very important. Now, look at the power developed in the hydel system. So what is the basic formula for power developed in the hydel system? That is given by P is equals to eta rho Q into G into H, where eta is nothing but efficiency. It is well known for us. and rho is nothing but the density. Rho is nothing but the density of the water. It is nothing but 1000 kg per meter cube, and Q is nothing but discharge in meter cube per second, and G is also very known. That is nothing but 9.8, and H is nothing but head of the water. Means when you are considering this formula, eta is a constant value, means we can assume that the efficiency value, and rho is also a constant value, and G is also a constant value. So finally, how we can write this equation is power is directly proportional to Q and H. Means from this, how we can write the power is depends on Q and H, where Q is nothing but the discharge of the water and H is nothing but the head of the water. So when you are changing this Q and H, then automatically we can change the power generation in ideal power plant. Okay, so this is nothing but the conclusion in case of ideal system. So till now we have seen a thermal power plant in normal scheduling and optimal scheduling, and similarly we have seen ideal system in normal scheduling, and there is no question of optimal scheduling in ideal system. Now it's the time for a combination of ideal at the same time thermal. That means is called as hydrothermal coordination. So simply coordination is nothing but a combination. So hydrothermal combination. Let me show you one simple representation for hydrothermal coordination. That is this figure. Why I am considering this one is a basic diagram for hydrothermal coordination means, for example, if you look at this diagram, in this diagram we are considering only one single power plant in case of thermal power plant. Similarly, we are taking only one hydropower plant, and the combination of these two must meet our load requirement. That is nothing but P. For example, when you consider the here nomenclature, PZT is there. PZT means P stands for power, G stands for generation, T stands for thermal. So PZT means power generated in a thermal power plant. Similarly, come to here, PGH. PGH means power generation by using hydropower plant. Okay, this nomenclature is very, very important because in the next week we are going to solve or we are going to derive some of the coordination equations. So in that, these nomenclature or representation of the different power plants are very, very important. And how to represent our demand, we are very much familiar to demand, that is nothing but PD. And similarly, come to here, water side, this is nothing but water inflow. It is represented by using J. It is nothing but universal representation for the representation of the water inflow. So J is nothing but represents water inflow, and this box is nothing but a reservoir or storage. And how to represent here water discharge by using the Q. So for example, this is nothing but water inflow, and this is stored in the reservoir, and from the reservoir we'll have a water discharge. So this is nothing but a valve. So by using this valve, we can control the water discharge. Here a turbine will be there, so that we can operate our turbine. So once turbine is operated, generator will be also in operating condition, so that we can get the PGH. So together, PGH and PGT should meet our PD. This is nothing but a simple diagram which represents hydrothermal coordination. But the thing is, already we have seen how to solve an optimization problem in a thermal power plants. But here, when we are considering hydrothermal coordination, how to solve an optimization problem. This is very, very important. When we are considering a thermal power plant, we need to consider here objective function. Similarly, we need to consider constant also. So that's why we have written our Lagrangian function is equals to objective function plus lambda into constant. We have objective function is there. Similarly, constant is also there in thermal power plant. But when you are considering only hydro power plant, there is no objective here because your fuel cost is 0 or negligible. So there is no question of optimal scheduling. But here we need to consider here constants. What is the constant here? Water availability. So in this case, when we are considering both the power plants at a time, means the coordination of hydrothermal, how to solve an optimization problem. Here, objective function is there. and similarly constant is also there in thermal power plant. And coming to the hydro power plant, here we need to consider a sum of the constraints. So together, how to solve our problem? That is very, very important. So before going to the solving of the different types of problems, first we will consider the main objective of the coordination. So the main objective of the coordination, already I told you in the initial classes of the second unit, we have 4 to 5 reasons are there. But when we are talking about optimal coordination of the two different power plants, we should talk about only a generation cost only. So when we are combining a thermal at the same time hydel, the main objective is a reduction of the fuel cost. Reduction of the fuel cost. So when you are taking two power plants, how you can write fuel cost? So total fuel cost is nothing but the fuel cost of thermal power plant and similarly the fuel cost of the idle power plant. But when you are considering the fuel cost of the thermal, it is very, very high. But when you are considering the fuel cost of the idle, it is nothing but negligible or we can say zero. But how to minimize the total fuel cost is nothing but when we are minimizing the fuel cost of the thermal, it represents that we can minimize the total fuel cost because the fuel cost of the idle is nothing but a negligible or we can say zero. The total fuel cost is nothing but the fuel cost of the thermal. So that's why our objective is we need to minimize the fuel cost of the thermal. So when you are considering only single thermal power plant, our objective is to minimize the fuel cost of the thermal. Similarly, when you are considering the coordination of the two different power plants, here also the main objective is we need to minimize the fuel cost of the thermal power plant itself. The reason is the fuel cost of the idle is nothing but a zero or negligible. So that what is the conclusion here? We need to minimize only the fuel cost of the thermal power plant only. When we are able to minimize the fuel cost of the thermal power plant, then automatically we can minimize the total fuel cost of the coordination of the two power plants. The reason is the fuel cost of the idle is nothing but a negligible or zero. Understood, everybody? So this is nothing but our conclusion. So even though if you are considering only thermal power plants, the main objective is we need to minimize the fuel cost. And even if you consider the coordination between a thermal and idle, in this one also our main objective is to minimize the fuel cost of the thermal only. The reason is the idle, the fuel cost is nothing but a negligible or zero. So this is nothing but our conclusion. Okay. Now let's move to the classification of the different types of optimization problems. So how to solve this problem? So before going to how to solve this problem, let me classify the different types of optimization problems. For example, when you are considering the types of optimization problem, basically we have two types of problems are there. Those are nothing but a static optimization problem and a dynamic optimization problem. Now, everybody is known that what is the meaning of static and similarly what is the meaning of dynamic. A static means it is nothing but a constant. A dynamic means it is nothing but it changes with respect to the time. On what basis we can take it is a static optimization problem and similarly it is a dynamic optimization problem. For example, in order to solve an optimization problem, we need to consider some of the parameters. If those some of the parameters are constant with respect to the time, then automatically we can say that optimization problem is nothing but a static optimization problem. Static means here constant with respect to the time. So what are the parameters we are going to consider? That is very, very important. Similarly, whatever the parameters we are going to solve, we are going to take for solving the optimization problem. If those values or parameters are changes with respect to the time, that problem comes under a dynamic optimization problem. Simple. If you consider any optimization problem, we need to consider a sum of the parameters. If those sum of the parameters are independent of the time, that problem is nothing but a static problem. If those parameters are depends on the time, that problem is nothing but a dynamically optimization problem. So for example, when you consider the static optimization problem, this is nothing but irrespective of time, they are constant, so that we can optimize easily. So easily we can get the solution for a static optimization problem, because the solution for the static optimization problem is not depends on the time. And coming to the dynamic optimization problem, here we need to consider a time also. When we are considering the time, the problem for optimization is becomes a complex. Complex means here the difficulty is increases in case of dynamic optimization problem. Now we can understand the basic definition between a static optimization problem and the dynamic optimization problem. Now let me ask a very simple question. Here, how many power plants are there? Here, two types of power plants are there. Those are nothing but a thermal power plant and similarly a hydro plant. Now tell me, a thermal power plant comes under a static optimization problem and dynamic optimization problem. Similarly, tell me, hydro plant comes under a static problem and dynamic problem. Yes, drop your answer in our chat box. Yes, I got a message that is 18 series 214 is saying that thermal is a static optimization problem. Yes, very good. Yes, someone else, one more 18 series 236 is saying that hydel is nothing but dynamic. Very good. A7 is saying that thermal is static and hydel is dynamic. Very good. So here, when you consider the thermal power plant, why we are considering the thermal power plant problem is a static problem is, what is the basic source for thermal power plant is nothing but coal. So as long as the coal cost is constant, similarly salaries are constant, similarly maintenance cost is also constant. When you solve this optimization problem in thermal power plant in January, or in the month of May, or in the month of September, or in the month of December, the solution is same. The reason is, whatever the parameters we are going to consider in a thermal power plant, we are taking those parameters as a constant. When those parameters are constant, easily we can get the optimized solution. So that's why we can say the thermal power plant comes under a static optimization problem. Similarly, hydel plant. When you are considering the hydel plant, it is nothing but a dynamic optimization problem. Now tell me here, why we need to consider hydel plant is a dynamic optimization problem. Here, the basic source for hydel power plant is nothing but water. Now tell me here, water is always a constant with respect to time? No, because it is depends purely on a seasonal wise. So for example, when you are considering the rainy season, we have plenty of water nowadays. But when you consider the winter season and the summer season, we don't have that much of water. Means when you are considering the hydel power plant, the water availability is not fixed with respect to time. It is changing with respect to the time. So that's why it is nothing but so that is, it is nothing but a dynamic optimization problem. So thermal power plant is nothing but a static optimization problem, whereas the hydel power plant is nothing but dynamic optimization problem. So this is nothing but a basic classification of the optimization problems, depends upon the parameters point of view. When the parameters are changing with respect to the time, that is nothing but dynamic optimization problem. When the parameters are constant with respect to the time, that is nothing but a static optimization problem. So from the basic understanding, we can say thermal power plant is nothing but a static optimization problem, and similarly hydel power plant is nothing but a dynamic optimization problem. Okay, and this classification is mainly depends on those parameters are constant or a variable with respect to the time. Next, we will move to one more classification, that is nothing but types of coordination. So when you are considering here types of coordination, you have two types are there. That is nothing but long-term coordination and a short-term coordination. So on what basis we can classify the coordination into two types is nothing but based upon the time. How much time we are going to coordinate these two power plants, whether it is a long-term basis or whether it is a short-term basis. So based upon this point, we can classify our coordination into two types. That is a long-term coordination, and the second one is short-term coordination. So how you can define what is the meaning of long-term, and similarly how you can define what is the time period for short-term is, for example, when you consider a month or a year, this coordination is comes under a long time. In some of the textbooks, they are representing that more than a year also. That is a meaningless because when you are considering the operational point of view, it is not enough to take the more than a year. It is enough to take within a year itself. For planning, it is okay. You may take a planning at 10 years. After 10 years, what happens? After 20 years, what happens? But coming to the operational point of view, there is no meaning when you are considering more than a year. So that's why when you are considering over a month or over a year, it is comes under a long-term coordination. But coming to the short-term coordination, when you are considering hour by hour, similarly within a day, similarly within a week, that coordination is called as a short-term coordination. So on what basis we can classify this coordination into two types is based upon the time. So for how much time we are going to coordinate these two power plants, whether we are going to coordinate a hour by hour or a day or within a week or within a month or within a year. So based upon this point, we can classify our coordination into two types. That is nothing but a long term and a short term. But as far as our syllabus is concerned, we don't have a long-term coordination. We have only a short-term coordination according to our university syllabus. But here the most important observation is how to solve a long-term and similarly how to solve short-term. Of course, we will consider only short-term, but coming to the long-term, we will take some optimization techniques. Generally, we use a stochastic dynamic problem in order to solve a long-term coordination. But coming to the short-term coordination, we have a 3 to 4 algorithms are there. In the next week, we are going to see those algorithms. But the most important point, we can say the most important assumption we need to consider here is head. So when you are considering the short term, the head is to be maintained as a constant. When you are considering the long term, the head is not always a constant. So in order to understand this point, let me share one more thing. Let us go to an official site of APGenCo. So here in the right side, so is it visible for you, everybody? Yes, okay, good. Now here we have right side reservoir levels are there. Reservoir levels. This is very, very important. Why we are saying a long term and similar short term. At the same time, one most important assumption we need to consider in the short term at the same time long term. So already we know what is the meaning of head. So when you click on this reservoir, you have some storage data is coming on. So when you look at this 11th September, means yesterday data, I think. So when you look at this data, this is nothing but a level of the reservoir in terms of feet. When you consider the Srisailam, let me show you. So when you consider the Srisailam, the level is nothing but it is maintaining at 884.8 feet. Similarly, when you consider the Nagarjuna Sagar, it is maintaining at 589.4. This is nothing but yesterday's data. Similarly, when you are considering today's data, it is also more or less same thing. 884.8, similarly 589.4. More or less, today data is also maintaining at this same levels. Similarly, when you are considering the tomorrow also we can maintain the same level, more or less. The reason, the point, what I'm going to say here it is, when you take a very short time, when we are considering a very less duration, there is no such difference in terms of head. It means it's nothing but a level of water where you can store. So here, there is no such difference when we are taking a shorter duration. But coming to the longer duration, in the rainy season, we can maintain almost 884.8. But coming to the winter season and coming to the summer season, can you maintain the same level? No, it is not possible because we don't have a water availability. When we don't have water availability, then automatically what happens here? This level we can't maintain as a constant. So that's why the assumption is nothing but when you are considering the shorter duration, we can assume head is nothing but a constant. So that's why in short-term coordination, we can assume head is nothing but a constant. But when you are considering the long-term coordination, we cannot assume head is not a constant value. So here nothing but it is not a constant value. Here it is nothing but a constant value. Similarly, when you are considering the short-term coordination, here we can neglect the power loss. At the same time, here we can get the CV loss also. When you consider the long-term coordination, here we need to consider the head. At the same time, we need to consider the loss also. So that is the basic difference between the long-term coordination and short-term coordination. So in the next week, we are going to see the different algorithms which are present for short-term coordination. In all the algorithms, what point we assumed that is nothing but head is a constant value. Why we need to consider it is a constant value? Just now I have seen in the official site of EPIC GENCO, when you are considering the shorter duration, the level of the water is almost maintained at a constant level. So that's why we can take our head is nothing but constant value. So this is nothing but a types of coordination. And coming to the next one, categories of hydrothermal scheduling. So when you are considering the depends upon the energies, we can classify this hydrothermal scheduling into 3 different categories. The first one is only hydropower plants, and the second one is it is a mixture of hydro and thermal, and similarly third one is also is a mixture of hydro and thermal. But the difference is when you are considering the first one, whatever the load energy is there, the total load energy is to be supplied by only hydropower plants. But this is not possible in the countries like India, Japan, Australia, and US, because these countries are nothing but a mixing of hydropower plant and thermal power plant. So that's why it is not possible. When you are considering the Norway and Sweden, it is possible. So that's why it is nothing but a very rare case. When you are considering only hydropower plants here, there is no question of optimal scheduling now. But the question is here water availability. So as long as water availability is there, we can go for hydropower generation. Okay, but this is in our country in India, this is not nothing but a very rare case. And coming to the second and third, these two are nothing but mixing of hydro at the same time thermal. But the difference between a second one and third one is when you are considering the second one, here PGH is more than PGT. PGH means hydropower generation, PGT means thermal power generation. Here, whatever the point we are going to assume here, it is hydropower generation is more when compared to the thermal generation. This is also not possible in case of India. And similarly, coming to the third one, here our assumption is thermal generation is more when compared to the hydro generation. So this point is present in our India. So means where hydro plants form a minor portion when compared to the thermal power generation. So this is nothing but based upon what type of power plant is going to generate or going to give the load. So based upon that point, hydrothermal scheduling is dividing into 3 types. The first one is only hydro plants, and the second one is, and the second one and third one is nothing but a mixing of 2 different sources. Okay, this is nothing but the categories of hydrothermal scheduling. And the last one is different types of algorithms for solving hydrothermal scheduling. This is the very important topic in the second. The first one is based on the energies. So just now we have seen in the previous slide, based upon the energies means whether hydro power plant is going to give the energy to the load or a thermal power plant is going to give the energy to the load. So it depends upon that point. Our first algorithm is nothing but scheduling based on energies. And the second one is general hydrothermal scheduling using a discrete time intervals. This is a very important algorithm. The reason here it is when you are considering a continuous time interval, we cannot solve the same problem by using a computer. So that's why what we will do is we are going to take a sub intervals. For example, let's consider 1 month is there. How you can divide that 1 month into equal parts into number of days. For example, if we consider the 30 days in a month, means we need to divide that 1 month into 30 equal intervals of time. Similarly, when you consider year means we have 12 months are there. So we can divide that year into 12 equal parts. So the same procedure we follow in the second algorithm. That is nothing but by using a discrete time intervals. And similarly, a third one is a short range scheduling using a gamma lambda iterations. Already we know what is the meaning of a lambda. Lambda is nothing but incremental fuel cost for a thermal power plant. Similarly, when you are considering the ideal power plant, we need to consider one more incremental fuel cost. But when you are considering the ideal power plant, there is no question of incremental fuel cost. So that's why this gamma, whatever the parameter we are going to consider here, this gamma is converted the water inflow into the incremental fuel cost. So this gamma is nothing but related to the ideal power plant, and this lambda is nothing but related to the thermal power plant. So by using these iterations, we can solve a short range scheduling. This is one more algorithm. And the last one is, we are very much familiar with the last one. That is nothing but by using a penalty factors. So already we know the importance of the penalty factor and how to use the penalty factor and what is the formula for a penalty factor. So by using the penalty factor, we can solve hydrothermal scheduling. That is nothing but a fourth algorithm. So basically we have 4 types of algorithms are there. But first in the next week, we will consider first one and the second one, and we will do some more problems on third algorithm and fourth algorithm. So this is nothing but basic overview of the algorithms of the hydrothermal scheduling. So with this, I can conclude today a technical point of view. And at the end, so many people are messaging me that, so what else we need to consider for gate preparation. Now, let me put some important information before you. That is nothing but regarding the textbooks. So these are nothing but the corresponding textbooks. And most of the people will know the standard textbooks. So what are the standard textbooks for different subjects? Along with the textbooks, these textbooks, and one more source is nothing but RK Kanodia publications. This publication is simply, I can say, excellent books. These are nothing but simply excellent books, especially for gate examination purpose only. So after that, already I told you that solve as maximum as possible of gate and IAS papers. And once your preparation is completed, take online test series from any coaching institute. I'm not saying that take coaching from any institute. I am saying that online test series, because when you are doing a lot of practice, especially through online test series, then it will help a lot during our examination. Sir, one more question you may arise, that is, what is the need for studying these standard textbooks nowadays? Yes, I can agree with you. Because nowadays, we have so many sources are there, not only standard textbooks. We have Google is there, we have YouTube is there, we have some other platforms are there. But the question is, why we need to study only standard textbooks? Yes. Now, let me clarify our doubt. When you want to write any competitive examination, whether it is statewide or a central-wide, the paper setters, whoever is going to set the papers, they will not design a new questions. They will pick up direct questions from these standard books. They will pick up the direct questions, and in some of the times, they will change the numerical values, that's it, from the standard textbooks. For example, when you consider the statewide examinations, AP, GENCO, AP, Transcon, DISCOMs, even they will not change the numerical values also. Whatever the question is there, the same question, just they will copy from the standard textbooks and they will paste in the question paper itself. So that's why my suggestion is just look into these standard textbooks. So after that, you can go for RK Kanodia publications and previous papers on online test series. This is nothing but the source for the gate preparation, and easily you can get all these textbooks in our library. In our library, So many volumes are there. So many volumes. If you consider any standard textbooks, all types of standard books are present in our library. So that's why use our library, utilize our library at maximum efficiency, then automatically you can get maximum score in the GATE or any examination. So with this, I will conclude my today lesson. Thank you very much.